Welcome to the Apex Sunday podcast hosted by John Delsett and myself, Robert Ross. And today we're talking about the Malaysian Grand Prix just before we get into Portimão, the second last round of the season. So, John, we'll start with what everyone's been starting with, the Moto3 accident. I didn't watch it. Social media, I saw the beginning of it because people were posting it online. It reminds me back to when I first met you and we started talking about Gilles, and some kind of documentary came up and you said, I hope they don't show the accident. And I took that to heart because I was new to racing at the time. And I think if you're new to it, one of the things that is spectacular is unfortunately the accidents. And we've talked about motorcycle racing being more like the old style F1 back in the day. And one of the unfortunate elements of that is the danger. And motorcycle racing is still much more dangerous today than car racing, statistically, I imagine. So Pecco wasn't happy that they proceeded with the Moto3 race. He thought that, these are young kids, how are they going to handle it? But commercialism wins out. And,
I disagree with that. They should have gone on with the race.
Regardless of...
It's simple. It's simple. It's racing. I mean, you look back in the days in Formula One, a driver would die in a race and they keep racing.
Yeah, that's true. But one of the things that was brought up was that the Moto2 and Moto3 warm-ups were removed in favor of the MotoGP rider parade. And and technically, like, if sometimes they take apart the bikes and rebuild them before the next day, and now they're only given one sort of on the warm-up lap, or the sighting lap for the actual race itself is the only time they can see if the bike is working properly and so forth. So when a rider has a problem, like in this case, they go slow. And as we know, differences in speed are, especially in a racing situation, are ripe for creating an accident. I remember a few years ago, there was a substitute rider in MotoGP, and he was like 5 or 6 seconds off pace. And the other rider said, he doesn't belong in this paddock at this point. He doesn't have the ability to ride these bikes at the speed that is safe for all of us. And that was a good argument, I thought. The rider didn't take it too well. He's like, these guys think they're the best and they're the elite. And it's like, well, that's because they are. And I know you've done mixed class racing, but everyone's prepared for the differences in speed and so forth.
To a certain degree, to a certain degree. There are two major things that happen in racing that most people can't comprehend until you're actually on a track. And that is that when you're traveling at those speeds, one, everybody's going the same direction. Two, most of your competitors are capable at what they're doing, and there's a protocol. In the case of the Moto3 crash, which was absolutely horrific, unfortunately, I did see it. The slow rider was on the line, and this is just unforgivable on their part. And unfortunately, the person that was at speed that contacted them hit them at an incredible rate of speed. He was just a victim in my mind. But yeah, you've got everybody going in the same direction at roughly the same speed when you're in a class such as Moto3, Moto2, or MotoGP. Everybody's going roughly the same speed. So everything's slow. It sounds bizarre, but I mean, you're dealing with high G-force. You're dealing with riding at the limit. But everybody's going roughly the same speed, and it makes it just a wonderful experience. It's quite easy. The speed is nothing, really. Yeah. It's, where you're going to brake, how you're going to turn in, and can you feel your traction, and we talked about it before with Marquez. You're traveling at a great rate of speed. We're going to brake later and later and later to go into a corner where Mark's used to be. I'm just going in full chat, and if I don't make it, I'll slow down a little bit, which is just mind-boggling. That's pure confidence, thinking that he can actually do it at that speed. I did the same thing,
Right.
which and it bit me. I didn't do it regularly, but when I did do that, it bit me hard.
And speaking of confidence, I mean, we'll sort of go into the sprint and Pecco, winning the sprint,
Hmm.
his sort of up and down season. He probably would have podiumed in the race if not for a very rare puncture in MotoGP. Uh, did you ever lose any confidence, or did you find that your confidence as you went through each season increased when you were learning to race and so forth?
It just grew. It just
Right.
grew. I mean, I was cocky when I went in. I thought I was a great driver, and there wasn't anybody that was better than me,
Mm.
and that sort of goes away. You stop thinking about that, and then it's confidence in your ability to actually race.
Yeah.
And it's a constant learning process. It never got boring. I mean, race after race, you're always learning. I think it was Fernando Alonso, who's been racing forever in Formula One, said
Mm.
he's still learning and he's still getting better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
But could you imagine losing confidence? Like, how much time would you lose? And where would you lose it? Would it be on the brakes and acceleration or through certain types of corners? Or
no for
what do you
me.
think?
For me, because it's interesting because you just reminded me of something. I actually did have a shake when somebody came out of nowhere, punted me, and I rolled.
Yeah.
And my next race out,
Hmm.
um, I was a little bit nervous. I was a little bit. I don't want to say I was hesitant, but
Hmm.
there was something that was getting in the way of my ability to fully concentrate. Yeah, I could still
Right.
fully concentrate, but it wasn't in the same way. There was something, looming in the back of my head
Yeah.
that slowed me down, and I lost a little bit of time doing that. But it was probably within 3 sessions on the track that was gone.
Right. 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 Yeah. And it's when you're racing against other people who are at the top level or at the same level as you, uh, losing a little bit of confidence or, sorry, a little bit of time, like it's just one hundredths of
Devastating.
tenths
It's
that add
devastating.
up through a
Oh
lap,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
But you don't have to be that far off to be that far off,
Well, and then the other
right?
thing is qualifying. You can't be mid pack.
Hmm.
You're not going to
Hmm.
win a race if you're mid pack.
Unless you're Mark or certain people like that, right? But
Right.
yeah. Uh, so, anyways, they're probably going to bring back the other warm up just to have everyone check their systems and so forth. But I heard another point raised up is like, well, what if something is bad in that session? You can't have warm up after warm up to check your system. So, it's always a balance. It's just unfortunate this accident happened, and hopefully they, learn from it. Like you're just saying, you always learn, and you learn from the good and the bad. So
There's
we've
so much
seen.
more to it though, Rob. It's
Mhm.
not just, is the bike working? It's what are the
Mhm.
track conditions, and how do the
Yeah.
track conditions evolve, and how does my bike handle this track, and
Mhm.
where are the breaking points, and where's the apex, and do I box this corner, or do I take a standard um box, being basically two apexes in a corner, or do I ride it traditionally? It's
Right.
all of those things are required. So it comes back to me coming out after a crash and being a little bit nervous. These guys have got to be a little bit nervous coming out on a track, going into a race or qualifying when they're they don't even know the track.
Yeah.
There are guys there that have never ridden that track before. I know in that series, there's probably somebody that's never ridden that track.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, anyways, at least the two riders are recovering. Uh, there's no death, which is always good. The
Hmm.
injuries might be difficult to recover uh, from the guy who took the worst of it, but we'll see. And the Moto2 team has already said they were in talks with him, and he has a seat there next season. So hopefully that happens.
Hmm.
So moving on to the sprint, the interesting thing about Pecco's victory is that his ride height device wasn't working, so he won without it, which is always an interesting thing. But he also said that it's sort of he didn't need it too much on this circuit, uh, so that was interesting. And we saw Alex Marquez. He finished second and secured his second place in the championship. So he said he's the first of the losers, but
It was
you
a
know,
convincing ride, and he is the first of
yeah,
the losers, but it was a convincing ride. Good for him for saying that. That shows humility.
yeah, and we do have a podium for a reason. The top three are celebrated because it's a great achievement, and
Hmm.
finishing second in the championship, really good achievement. Mark will be there at Jerez because the gala is always at the evening of after the race to collect his first place, and Alex in second. Third is still to be determined. But first time in the 79-year history, two brothers finished first and second. So, good for them. And again, good for Alex because, when you're the brother of a rider like Mark, you get these weird expectations from people always compared to him. The fact is that he's done well against Mark, and no other rider has beaten Mark this season to the championship as well. So, judge him by the standards of all the riders, not just because he's the brother of Mark Marquez. And then Pedro Acosta had a great battle with Aldeguer. He makes the podium again. Um, Joan Mir, the way he's riding that Honda kind of reveals why he's had so many crashes. We see the kind of rider he is. He's throwing it sideways, sliding all over the place.
He's
Still
trying
made his
everything to get the most out of the bike, right?
Yeah, made his way up to third in the sprint, but fell. Uh, and
Tragically,
he
that was
admitted,
so sad.
yeah, he admitted his mistake. He said it was his problem. He didn't. He was at fault for the slide and the crash. Uh, but he made third in the race. Granted, after Pecco's puncture, but he said it was the hardest race in his life managing the tires. Uh, so
That's dramatic.
again, the way these guys manage the tires and they're still sliding all over the place and to make the podium. This is why this is the kind of racing I like, the tire management. And I think it was George Russell say that, we don't have too much tire drop off. So everyone's getting great performance out of the tires. And so it changes the way you race. And it kind of surprised me that with the amount of torque that Formula One engines have with the electronic or the electric part of it, and they're still not wearing out the tires. Now, you do hear about towards the end of the stint, the tires are going, but I guess it's not a managing the tires throughout the whole sprint or stint. It's managing the tires when they start to drop off. So there's a slight difference where you have to manage the tires from the beginning in this type of racing. But
I disagree. I don't believe George Russell.
right,
If you take a look at how brutally hard it is to pass in that sport,
mm-hmm.
and you've got somebody that's trying to pass somebody, they're just chewing up the front tires because they've lost their front downforce. They're understeering into corners and they're scrubbing at their front tires. It's a great strategy to keep somebody behind you. You want them to keep close so you can screw their tires. and then you're done. You're gonna have to come in early to get fresh tires, and hopefully you can win it in the pits. But that's pretty goddamn boring compared to what we see in
Yeah,
MotoGP. So
yeah.
yeah.
So for the race, again, we just talked about uh, Pecco's. You know, I rarely see punctures, so he said he went about 5 laps before he realized he thought his tire was dropping off, and then we saw the puncture. I thought that Pedro had a great race to finish second, and he credited Paul Espargaro and he credited the experienced riders. Danny Pedrosa is also the test rider for KTM.
Hmm.
We've seen a change in Pedro through the second half of the season where he is managing the race and his position rather than throwing everything at it and crashing.
Hmm.
And Mir kind of needs to do that now that he's got a bike that he can throw around. And he did say he managed the tires, but it was very difficult. So maybe that will develop. So I like that Pedro, he's growing mentally, and that's what you need. You have all the ability, but you need the racecraft to get the best position that you can get.
Prime
And then
example of
Alex,
that. Prime
Mhm.
example of that is Zarco. And I was
Right?
talking to somebody about Zarco's mad skills on a bike, and they just burst out laughing and said, "Yeah, but he never finishes his race. He always crashes out." But
Hmm.
well, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and he's saying he's having a hard time with the new Honda upgrades, whereas Mir and Marini are doing better on it. And
Hmm.
once again, it just the way that you have to set up a bike or a car like is very individual to the way that you ride, right? And we're
Hmm.
seeing again with Mir, just I thought it was just so entertaining to watch him ride that Honda. And that's the way the Honda was known to be ridden, like throwing it around, and that's why Mark did so well on it at the time. So Alex gets his another victory, his third victory of the season. I love the dark blue. Looked way better on the Grassini, I thought, but that's neither here nor there. Uh, Tires again were very crucial, and those that gambled on the medium kind of fell back. So you had to manage the soft to finish the race. So very entertaining, great track. I thought Malaysia is just a wonderful, large, huge track with slight elevation changes. So I really enjoyed that. So in terms of rider of the event, again I'm biased. Mir's the guy who first got me into it. I just found his ride the most enjoyable, so he's going to get it. And I'm going to rate it a 7. You know, the coverage is pretty good. They covered downstream some
Hmm.
passes and so forth. Oh, what about yourself?
Acosta.
Yeah,
I was impressed with Acosta. I'm sort of surprised we haven't talked about him.
I'll go
Um,
ahead.
and I'm going to rate it the same as you. I'm going to maybe a little bit more, maybe an 8. And the main reason is because of the coverage showing, throughout the field, and their battles going on everywhere, and it's so refreshing to see all of
Mhm.
it. When you go and see a race live, you see all that stuff, and
Right.
it's not boring because the front guy goes through, and in this case, we've got Alex out front that's just cruising pretty much. And then you've
Yeah.
got all the battles behind, and it's the battles behind that continue through the whole field as they go by, and it's wonderful to watch. So it was nice to actually have coverage of it.
So what do you have to say about Pedro for the race?
Just consistency, man. I mean, the guy's
Mhm.
just consistent. He's there. He's just always there,
Yeah.
and doesn't make stupid mistakes as often as
Mhm.
others, and just a great, great ride. Yeah.
Yeah, he's evolved a lot this season, and
Hmm.
I if I was to try to rate the top 3 riders currently on the grid, Mark is 1, uh, Fabio Quartararo is 2 for me,
Hmm.
and I thought, well, who's third? And Pedro hasn't won yet, and so forth, and it's only his second season, but everyone's seen the promise and potential of him, and I kind of think that he may well be the third rider. And once he gets a bike and he continues to evolve, that can win. He's going to be winning a lot of races. What are your thoughts on the top three currently?
There's just so much talent. My God. I mean,
I know
there's
it's
so much
difficult.
talent in that field. There's Bastianini, there's Acosta, I'm just looking at the list here.
Bezzecchi, right? Bezzecchi's
Bezzecchi.
done
Oh my
well.
God, what
Yeah.
Bezzecchi's done on that Aprilia, unbelievable. And
Mm.
there's a lot of talent. There are very few that you can look at and say they don't belong there,
Yeah.
and maybe nobody. What's going to happen with Agura? Can Agura step up to the plate? I mean, he had that horrific, injurious
Yeah.
crash. How much?
But
What did?
he was
How
the
did he come
top
back from that?
Aprilia this race, and the Aprilias were definitely, this was not the circuit for them or the grip level or whatever.
Right.
But I was the top at that, and maybe he's better at managing tires, and that's why he's at the top. And he's a rookie, so yeah. The only person that I'd say is not doesn't belong there and will be gone is some cat Chantra on the other Honda in
Right.
SCR. They tried him, and he's just not at that level. He's moving to Superbike next season with Honda, so he may be a good Superbike rider coming from Moto2. Uh, but yeah, it's very difficult to rate these riders, at least for me, once you get to after Mark and Fabio. And I think Fabio doesn't have Mark's vision of an entire race yet. He's a bit more emotional than Mark is, but we'll see how he does once he gets on a great bike.
If I was to
All of
look at you, Rob, and say, you know what, you get to pick two riders. I'm going to give you a race team and
mm,
maybe even a backup rider, but you can have it. You can't have Alex. You can't have Marquez. You can't have Alex Marquez. They're done. They're taking. They're owned by somebody else. You can't afford them.
right,
Who cares what it is?
right,
But you could have two riders out of that field, put together a team.
mm,
Um, you know, that's a tough call, isn't it?
super tough. Yeah, I mean, even Pecco with all of his problems this year, and both he and Ducati seemed lost. Although I say lost, they just sort of like at Motegi, they didn't understand why he won both races and then was terrible again.
He's lost
Once
the
they
most
figure it out,
important part of racing, which is consistency. Like, be
hmm
consistently bad, and that's better
right?
than doing what he's doing. I mean, at least
Yeah,
then there's some you can make some sense of it. But you
hmm
can't make any sense of what's going on with him.
he and Ducati seem to think that this race in particular they've made changes and it worked and they kind of figured out why. So we'll see. But yeah, the field is very close in terms of rider talent and racecraft and so forth. The bikes are, I think Ducati's still pretty clearly at top, and Honda's gaining. Aprilia's done really well. KTM up and down. Pedro's making the difference there. So yeah, it's very difficult. But without the Marquez brothers, my team, yeah, uh, because we're not even talking about Jorge Martin, who won the championship last season. He's been
Why don't you think about it? And in our next show,
right.
we will come up with who we think the team is.
Okay. And then to leave, did you see Lando Norris's Halloween costume?
I did not.
He dressed up as Fabio Quartararo.
Ah, I love it.
So yeah, we've seen. I heard Max say that when he just goes watch a MotoGP race at the circuit when he has off time. So we see these crossover between these two series. So yeah, I thought that was wonderful.
I love it.
And Quattraro in response donned Lando Norris costume, so
Oh
that
man,
was good.
I'm looking it up
Um,
right now. I need to see that. Oh
and
boy.
speaking of Fabio, and Jorge Lorenzo. Actually, I'll leave this for our end of season review because I will be blowing smoke up Mark's behind quite a lot
Kind
during
of
that
hard not to,
review.
right?
Yeah, but both Quartararo and five-time world championship champion Jorge Lorenzo have done just the same this week with Mark. So it's unfortunate Mark's out for the rest of the season with his injury, and he's going to miss the first test of the GP26. But anyways, great talking to you. Next up is Portimão, which we both love as a circuit. They call it the roller coaster because the elevation changes are massive.
My favorite.
And yeah, we should see if people are thinking Pedro, it's a good chance for him to win. He's done very well at this circuit in the past, but we cannot predict who will win each with Mark out. It's very hard to say, who's going to win the next race. Mark doesn't win all the races, but he wins a lot of them. So when he's in the circuit, it's like, Mark's got a good chance of winning. But
yeah,
anyways, we'll see. Great talking to you, John.
Sounds good, Rob. Look forward
Cheers.
to the next one.
Bye-bye.
Take care.